So, good evening and welcome to Flint Moore. I hope you're all well. You're looking well. We're at Francis' wonderful home, which is a great treat being here. So, thank you for hosting us all, as always.
Welcome.
So, tell us about the band, really, from your early days. We'll just take things step by step, looking at the development of the band, how you got together, and we'll just roll.
Flint Moore, as it is now, I personally believe started when Maddie joined the band. So we were still piecing things together and working it out. There was a Flint Moore, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't the Flint Moore as we know it until Maddie arrived. And then that's kind of been it. We are unique in the fact that all of the members that we started with, we still have in the band. There hasn't been a new member or anything like that. So, Lawrence, we met at like music college.
Yeah, so I think I'd met you when I was like 16, and I think I remember you walking into like the assembly or something with some like chinos, and then I don't see you again for a couple of hours, and then you're kind of standing outside the hallway doing like sea shanties with your acoustic guitar, just yelling, and just people watching you. I'm just like, he's gone from one extreme to the other. I don't know if I like this person yet. I still don't. Let's be honest.
Still trying to find your style then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back then it's music college. I knew that. I didn't even know what I knew. I knew that I wanted to do music and stuff, but when you're at music college, you don't really know anything. So I'm like, how do we? Then Lawrence was coming right back. It's really tricky because like Noah, our drummer, we met in like school, and he was like just way younger. He was in year 7 and I was in year 10. So like we weren't really friends at that point, but we knew of each other at that kind of time. Okay. It was only afterwards. But so when you start talking about how far back does the band go in terms of relations, it's ages. But it's probably easier to go from the fact of after college. I really wanted to get a band together, but I had no idea how. Right. And Noah got news of the fact that I wanted to get a band going, and he was like, hey, we should totally do a band together. And I was like, no, not a chance. I was at the time was inspired by things like Mumford and Sons and Ben Howard the most, and he really liked like Frank Zappa and was on his way to really liking Tool. Right. So it was just like, and his main reason at the time was that I was the only other guy that understood what time signatures were. Just the concept of time signatures, by the way, not even just to play them. But he was really persistent on being like, we should do it. And I was like, oh, fine, sod it. Let's do that. If we're in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to do it, then we're going to go for it. And then the next several months were, pulling different folks. I met Lawrence at college.
Ryan?
And Ryan at college for like a day.
Yeah, he sort of came afterwards, didn't he?
Yeah, and I only met him like for one day. And I roped him in because I called the band a musical project, not a band. Because after college, he said he was done with bands, but he might be open to a musical project. And then I think, Maddie, you on the most outside. Actually, I'm really interested. What was your angle in on Flint Moore? Because all I know about it is you kind of, I heard about you, then we met up and stuff, and then...
Yeah, I suppose my idea of what happened was you wanted to start a band. Noah wanted to start a band. You went to college with Lawrence. You met Ryan at college, through college. And then you messaged me on Facebook. And you were like, oh, do you want to go for a coffee? And I was like, okay, random man I've never met before. Actually, no, I had seen you play in a band.
Pretty sure I gave you a heads up of what it was about. Yeah, it wasn't just like, yo,
unsolicited.
You want a coffee?
And yeah, I saw you play in a band, Francis, was it Archdale Street?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, at a pub in King's Lynn.
Yeah.
And so I really remembered that. And my brother went to college with you two as well.
Yeah.
And then you found out that I was a bass player, right, through your cousin?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
It's not that interesting.
well,
sorry.
but no, but for me, it was like wild because I was like looking
Yeah.
for bassists, and it's really hard, actually. People usually say, you know, when you're getting a band together, drummers are really difficult, but maybe because I lucked out, I was just like, I already have a drummer, a bassist. There was one guy beforehand that I was trying to scope out and stuff, and he probably would have made it into the band because I'd asked him, hey, do you want to play and stuff like that? But he blew off our first band practice because he said he had a shift and he did it last minute. And my philosophy back then was super cut and dry. I was just like, if you can't make it to the first practice, you ain't making it to a gig. And so I was like, nah.
Just obviously wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be.
And because I played in a band for 7 years with my brother and our best friend, and that was like a cover / original band that did like funk rock.
Maddie was by far the most experienced band member when the band started, by far.
So yeah, I started playing when I was like, when I was 10.
Yeah.
And then I was playing in pubs when I was like 12, 13.
Wow.
And then, yeah, so then you messaged me, met up for a coffee in Costa. And then I think I
We
came
just
to the
chatted
band
about
practice
it.
like
Yeah.
next week or something.
And I thought that like, you know, those floor monitors, those wedges, I thought that would be enough for as a bass amp. So she asked if I had one, and I was like, yeah, I totally have a bass amp, because I thought they would do the same kind of thing. And when she saw it, she was like, this isn't a bass amp. And I'm like, won't it work? And she's like, no. And then you brought your bass amp next time.
Yeah.
Because you were hoping just to be able to keep taking public transportation. But I think for a while your mum dropped it.
Yeah. Good old mum.
This was years ago, by
Yeah.
the way. I should add. Like, we're talking, at least 10 years or something like that. So it's taken us a while to form and storm and all.
To coalesce into the shape that you are now.
Yeah, amen. But like, as for how Flint Moore came together, it was essentially like that. We did one-on-one practices. We kind of got used to each other's energy, and then one day we all came together. And I remember everybody's energy kind of being like cats. They're kind of like not too sure. I think Maddie stood up on top of like her amp or something like
You
that.
always tell me this. You say
you
like,
can't remember
I
it,
stood
but
on-
because it was so odd. You literally just like out of nowhere didn't say anything. You just kind of got up and stood on your amp, and we were like, okay. You're up there now, and then you don't remember it, so I
No.
feel like I'm
But
nuts.
like, and I remember Noah like looking at me really dodgily when I walked through the door, because you had Noah had expectations of wanting like a bald smoking
Oh,
bass
yeah.
player, and he wanted to like have a smoking buddy, and then I walked through with like really long hair and a woman and not smoking, and he was like, oh.
That's an odd set of criteria to
Yeah.
want for a bass player.
I'd say so.
Back then, Noah was full of odd criteria. But so was I, to be honest. Like, I think we all were in our own kind of ways. So back then, I didn't believe it. I believed it was just like, oh yeah, I've got it. So yeah, that for better or worse, long or short, that is how Flint Moore started. It's hard to pull together now because we've gone through a lot of chapters since then. But yeah, that's about that, I think, unless you guys can think of someone else.
It's quite hazy.
Yeah,
really
you know
thinking
what?
about it now. It's just kind of like we started doing quite a number of local gigs, and I think we recorded our first EP pretty quickly, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
I think when you joined, it was like a couple of
2
weeks,
weeks.
2 weeks
Wow.
or something.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good work rate.
Because at that point, I'd composed a bunch of the bits and pieces at that point. Just to get, I knew at the time that you had to get something going, even if it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Or else you can scatter to the wind. So we did like 2 songs. One's called Dewlers, the other one was called You Got the Fever. And I envisioned those 2 songs as the 2 possible paths we could have gone.
Yeah.
One was like pop funk. It sounds like The Sims kind of music.
Right.
and Eulers, which sounded like the Sims version of rock, but it was still something rockier and stuff. I think at the end of that particular version, I just started yelling because I couldn't do screamy singing kind of intensity yet. I just went, ah, and that was it. While some piano was going on, it was not good.
Yeah.
Those tracks still haunt us a bit.
They
'Cause
do.
people are like, "Are you gonna play Jewelers again?" It's like that was literally 8 years ago.
It was so long, and
Stop it.
and it's not even one of these cases that you look back and you go, oh, but it's all right. I've grown and stuff like that. It was legitimately just not that great. It really wasn't. It's, it held itself for as long as it needed to, but it's, there's some songs I look back right early on and go, you know what, there's still the workings of a real, good old song there, but not as much in those ones.
Well, it's a good, sort of, I say, thrusting yourself into it. It's a very good philosophy to really coalesce, again, that word, yourselves as a unit, to have that experience and to say, yeah, look, we've actually got something here.
Yeah.
So of the two paths, you just decided that one worked better than the other.
Yeah. It took us a while, though, to really settle on it.
I think our influences are very mixed for a long time as well, which made writing a challenge because we were all almost pulling in different directions for quite a while.
We all had we're all kind of individualistic for one, and second of all of us back then did have a lot bigger egos. I mean, I'm sure we have some egos going now, but at least they play nice with each other. But at the time it was just, I want it this way and so on. I wanted Mumford & Sons and Maddie wanted Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's no in between of that, man. There just isn't. And you might find that middle ground, and Lawrence is like, yeah, but that's not Godspeed, it's not Godspeed, you Black
20
Emperor.
minutes wall of noise feedback.
So it was a miracle. It was a miracle that we managed to release songs at all. When I think about it. And it's why it took us so long to get to any kind of debut album, I think, because it just took so long to kind of work out what exactly all of us were saying.
I was going to say with the developing of the songwriting skills and everything, did someone come along with something they were really pleased with and then everyone else vetoed it because it just didn't quite fit in with their perception of what the band should be? You say about the egos at the beginning, was it sort of, a little bit more fractious maybe than those initial times until you'd found your groove?
I would say that's a pretty good word for it, yeah.
I mean, it depends when you catch us in our history. So there are plenty of times that I'd write a song, bring it to the band, and it would be vetoed. But that's, that's normal as those stuff. But even with sometimes with Lawrence, you'd come with a particular riff, and you're like, "This is really cool," and we're like, "Oh, it's not right where we're at the moment." Yeah. Same with Noah in particular, drum rhythms and stuff like that. It's just like, there's a bit much and stuff. So there's a kind of joy to bands for that reason, though. That's what makes it different from a solo project. If it was just you got your own way all the time, it would kind of get boring.
Yeah.
God knows that I wouldn't have the patience to add what everybody else adds to Flint Moore songs, because I'm just it's like
Lawrence is like, let me just work on this for the next 2 months, and then he comes up with something absolutely
and it's just
glorious.
the same thing but with more reverb.
It's not that.
That's what I've done, guys. But it sounds perfect.
Well, when writing something, it will happen. It's just I'll write a riff or something, and there's a couple of ways to write. But the way I like to write is I write it and I immediately want to bounce off someone. Maddie's kind of similar like me in that way. It's like immediately just launch into it, man. See what happens, stuff like that. Lawrence is not that. He's like, no. Let me think.
Got to think of some weird idea for the next week.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it in there.
And you'll be like, let me come back to that. And we'll be chasing you for like 3-4 weeks. Like, you got something, man? And you're like, no. And then 1 week he'll come out and just bust out an entire part. And you're like, man, that's really cool. And you're like, I know.
And it changes the whole vibe of the song when
Does.
Lawrence does that.
I think that happened with Undermask, actually.
Yeah, I think it was just like the sort of the beginning bit. Yeah, it's quite, because compared to like the rest of the song, it's quite atonal, dark.
Oh, you're talking about the middle
sort of the middle bit, yeah. And then
That-
it just gets chaotic after that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think there was a bit of a period where I just didn't really know what to do in that middle section. Just kind of had something that sounded kind of like almost Russian circles, kind of heavy, eerie, menacing kind of thing. I'm like, we'll put that in there. Would that work? Maybe. And it ended up working with everything else.
These days it becomes a lot easier. At least with the album we just put out, The Eggs in the End, a lot of the key points was that there was a theme of anxiety all the way through. So it was I'm not going to say it was easier, but we definitely knew what we were getting attracted for. So some of our questions would be like, is this twisting in the right way? Is this hitting where we want to? So Lawrence would come up with a thing, and he's talking about, we're talking about the middle 8 bit. That's all like dark and broody, but that made sense. Like even when we were doing it, it wasn't left field. It was like, oh, that's dark and bizarre. I like that.
I was going to say as well, like at the beginning, before writing the album, in those few years of like when we'd released before to recording the album, we took a long time to decide what we wanted to make and like visually what we wanted to create and sonically what we wanted to create. And it took quite a long time for us all to understand what each other wanted, because it was like you can say something but then it's interpreted by each member of the band differently. If you say, I think that going in a more dark, emotional, anxiety inducing sounds way, that could sound very different to different people. So I think it's
to slap.
Like we have to in the end like make a full document about like this is what we want, and like if we ever started to go too far away from it, it'd be like, no, this is what we want. Because I think in the past, as we said earlier, like it was easy to like go off route and write something that wasn't quite like it'd be like what one person wanted but not the other people. So then
it's like there's no rules in songwriting, right? Not really. Like every song can go anywhere, so you have to kind of self-impose rules because you can never go, no, that's bad. Because like up yours, it's fine, it's great. All you can ever go is that's wrong, or it's not what we're after. It's not like terrible, but it brings the song to a direction that we weren't talking about. And if it eventually pulls in enough, then we might either decide to take it in a new direction entirely or just drop that concept and start a new song with those themes. Because obviously we're trying to fight to get that theme in, right? And that works a lot better as opposed to trying to beat something into a song that never needed it. It's like, okay, man, if you really want to have this chord progression, let's start a new song. It's obvious that it's not fitting in this one. Take that out, make it its own thing, and then it can breathe, as opposed to having this weird dichotomy in the song.
I was going to say, with see, you all bring your own elements to the whole sound and everything, and in the development of the band in these past 9-10 years that you've been together, initially maybe there was a little bit of stubbornness. You came and you thought, right, okay, this is what I want it to sound like. This is my bit. And it's going to fit in. You're just going to wedge it in. However, do you now come, when you have these ideas, just with a little bit more of appreciation of how it is going to fit in with everyone else? How these various elements, you have your inspiration, but you also sort of think, okay, that's a great idea, but how does it need tweaking slightly to fit in with the Flint Moore sound?
I think nowadays how I look at writing is that pretty much anything can work. You just kind of have to be willing to compromise what's in your head to what's in other people's heads, and then it can kind of just sit in. Like, for example, we're talking about Undermask, like there's a lot of eerie sounds in there that probably may not have worked with like a different band or a different set of heads, but with other songs, you just sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's just having, you can basically do anything, but you just have to be willing to listen to what other people want to say on on the song and just compromise it enough so that it actually fits. So what I like to do is kind of start off with a really crazy idea that wouldn't work unless I was doing like a solo thing. And then kind of, because that's what it was like with you at the beginning. It was like we would sit down like and do like a one-on-one kind of thing, because nowadays we kind of do it as a band and just kind of listen to each other in like the practice space. But what we used to do then was just be like, okay, this sounds cool, this sounds really melodic and everything, and then Ryan would come in with something from working with you, and then it would all sound a bit like it was like 5 great ideas that came together that just sounded like it just kind of sat over each other weirdly. And I think partly because we released less songs, because I think only like a couple of them kind of really stood out and worked, whereas like maybe 3 others were just kind of messy and stuff.
Yeah, we totally. So you're right in the sense that we are now way more careful with how we position our stuff, because of where we get. It used to be like one-on-one, then we stack it, and then it would be like a nothing pie. You thought you had this big wall of sound, but actually all you have is this jumble. So like when we did this album, we were like, we've got to demo this first. Like we've got to do it in the band room, but we've also got to hear it in the headphones and see where things sit, so then we don't step on each other's toes. Like slowly understanding that it's, you know, if everything is sitting on top of each other, it just makes the song worse. It doesn't, you know, you don't sound better. You think that an old way of thinking might be you play more, it pushes more. No.
Yeah, I think because our frame of mind before was we have 5 instruments. Let's use all those 5 instruments.
We've got 5 instruments. I'm going to get 5 instruments worth.
But now we try to stick by like a 3 instrument at one time rule.
Yeah.
Which we
give it a bit more space and a bit more of a dynamic.
Because as you can hear, like Noah's drums take up a lot of space in the songs a lot of the time. So it's about letting them have the space when they're there.
Yeah.
And pulling away. Getting Noah to like pull back a bit
Sure.
as well.
And even like, I used to believe my acoustic guitar would always need to be real fronted. Turns out acoustic guitars take up loads of space. You'd never believe it at first. You'd think of this little like piddly thing. You're like, what is it? Turns out there's a reason why there's a whole bunch of singer-songwriters that only use a vocal and an acoustic guitar, because acoustic guitars can really fill out a space. And I decided for whatever reason to don an acoustic guitar most of the time in a rock band. So yeah, half the time I play open chords to get the sound of the acoustic without, you know, ruining everything else. So I can enjoy that kind of chalky, for lack of better words, sound, a grittier, grounded thing without it being a mess. You know, absolutely.
It's interesting how you obviously your sound has developed, you know, from those 2 early recordings through to the EPs through to the album. Obviously that's going to happen naturally in time, isn't it? Do you feel that you've found your sound? Are you still developing your sound?
Definitely developing still.
Well, yes and no.
Well,
it's like it finally feels like this is who we are. Like it feels like feels very
really
true.
Good. It does.
It feels very true to who we all are and what we are happy that we've created, and I think we can all say that. Like,
no, absolutely, 100%.
I think this is where, you know, the album that's just been released, it's where Flint Moore are now.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're always keen to move on.
Yeah.
So you never, you know this, you never stop developing as an artist.
The jazz funk sea shanty death metal album is the next one.
That's to come. Yeah.
On its
with
way
the industrial elements.
Exactly.
Like we're much, at least, you know, we're much happier where we're at, and we're very excited going on to the next stuff as well, knowing that we have that kind of understanding. We've done stuff that has worked way better this time round. Like, for instance, you spoke about moving on naturally onto the next thing. Actually, I'd say this album, at least right at the beginning, was extremely deliberate. There was nothing smooth with it. It was like all of the lessons, let's be a little stronger with word here, all of the failures that had happened beforehand that had made things difficult or complicated. We drew them together and went, right, we can't do any of this again. We can't do that again. How do we make sure that each one of these things that really hurt us and made it very difficult, how do we make sure we don't repeat it? So, for one example, the producer of our album is Tom Peters. He's over at Trapdoor Studios, over in Liverpool. And we asked him to come on and be producer, because we try and produce ourselves. And, maybe even I would try and overstep and produce more and what have you. And what that meant was when you had someone in the group trying to pull these things, you'd end up with politics as opposed to truthful music. So we were like, okay, we got to find a producer. And not just any producer. It has to be a producer of someone that already kind of mixes and likes the kind of sound we do. Just stuff like that. Like, let's stop fighting and start finding the things that make...
And pretending that we're the best at knowing what's the right thing to do in the studio.
Like, always understanding, and we were so tired of all of the conflict of what was meant to be one of the most joyous bits of it. Like, tough. Obviously tough, but it shouldn't suck, right? It shouldn't be like you hear the near last mix of a song and you're like, oh, God.
Because the amount of times you said,
not again. Yeah,
the amount of times you were like, Lawrence, have you played that? Yeah, I was like, that's been in there for like 6 months. I haven't heard it before.
Honestly,
and now it's like the loudest thing in the mix.
Yeah, that happened loads where I was like, what? Lawrence plays that part?
Ryan was like, more piano.
Playing everything out of key the whole time.
Yeah, but like another thing, and this is very keen for myself as well, is that the album needed to mean something. It couldn't just be a collection of songs we found and thought we could rope together. There had to be some kind of narrative. I never been so fond of like strict stories. I've always been very much about feelings and emotions, which is a really broad statement. But so I wanted to make a album that would follow feelings as they went through a particular crisis. That was pretty much the criteria, and then we built from there. It wasn't like it has to be this or this or this really strong, or else that would limit everybody else in the band, and none of us want that. So we let it still be steered while understanding that it needed to flow in a particular way. And that worked out really well.
Because I think we all relatively feel similarly in our emotional states, but I suppose that's the same with many people. But like,
but no, especially you're right though, in the band, we're all that's why it works, because we're all in that kind of ballpark.
So when we were writing the songs, it was always like you start to relate it to how you're feeling or what you've been going through. So I think certain songs for me in the album stick out as like, I remember how I felt when like we started writing that, and then that became, that meant something to me at that point of my life that I related to, and that allowed me to
get in there,
put my energy into it in a certain way. Like for me, it was Me Alive. Yeah. Also because we got to film a music video for that. Yeah. Which. Yeah.
It's Me Alive is an interesting one because it means something to me, and then it'll mean something to Maddie that's kind of different as well, but they sit in the same area. So we pull from different feelings of our lives, but it's still the same energy. And that's when it's really cool, because it's like, she had some particular pain and anxiety about something, and I did too, but they kind of just went together.
And then so will
just like that.
And then so will the listener. Like that song, I feel, well, all the songs, but will be related to in different ways by the listener. Yeah. But it will be in the similar vein to what we intended it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not laying on everything on a plate for everyone per se, but there's things people can pick up on the whole mood because of what you've poured into it.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, I can never, when talking about writing, I can never say with 100% guarantee where everybody else was coming from, because that's part of being in the band. But while writing this, I really wanted to speak to the outsider or the one who felt like an in-betweener, because many times in my life, I have felt exactly like that. Even when, arguably speaking, I could not, like I'd be in with friendship circles and such. But I think that sensation and feeling can just be with you sometimes. And I often felt within the musical world, there was plenty for people who felt really, really depressed and awful, and plenty of those who felt really good and wanted to feel great. But there was nothing for this weird floaty in between kind of, what am I doing? Like people who felt awful and crap, but wanted hope and wanted things to be okay, but they couldn't pull any kind of like blue sky thinking out, you know? And that resonated with me really strong. Because, like, okay, you're all pissed off and you're angry. Go and listen to Nirvana. Fuck it. Like, fuck the man. But what happens when there's no man to get angry at? It's just you. And you're in this in-between state and you're really frustrated with yourself. It's not, you know, you could, it's, yeah, that's kind of it. The floating in between. I don't know about you guys for sure. All that.
I was about to say something and it's completely gone.
We can edit it in later.
Just do a voiceover.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Or a little speech bubble above your head.
Add it in here now.
One of the things that really strikes me with you guys is the real familial feel of you as a group of people. And also I think that comes through with everything you do. You know, there is a different atmosphere about you, and it's really, really nice. You know, you say, you know, you've been together a long time. You've not changed the lineup at all. So you have grown together. I know sometimes families do have their ups and downs naturally, but you know, for me, you know, having been, you know, been around you a wee bit when we were in Cambridge, you know, there is that sense of togetherness. And I think that, you know, the album and everything around it, you know, it's a work of art. You know, the songs are very striking, I said, because they come from yourselves and they're your own sound. But also, you know, everything is done with such a level of care and attention. There's a real homegrown feeling to everything from the artwork that's been done.
Yeah, Noah did all of the artwork.
Yeah.
So
onwards, you know, you have complete, you know, sort of control over that. It is your product. That must be a nice feeling to actually get the album completed at last as well. You know, to actually have it out there.
Yeah, it was a massive relief. You know, it's funny. It was the first time I had released something with the group where I didn't release. I didn't release it and immediately feel some kind of like regret or I'll do better next time. You know, there's always room to improve, and I can of course hear the songs now, and I'll probably have things I can tweak. But they now feel like, oh, I could have done that, rather than I should have done that. Really strong. It's like, for me, they aren't massive make or breaks. The song is still there. It is how it could have been and it should have been. And if I started changing it now, it would just be because I'm now in a different kind of head state. So I do feel proud of it, and I do feel, you know, proud of everyone.
Because we really sat on this release for such a long time and spent such a long time, like in the HQ shed, just like recording lots and lots of different ideas. I think at one point Me Alive was completely different. It was a lot kind of ploddier and sounded
slower,
different. And I think at one point we probably would have just kind of stuck with that vibe and then maybe, you know, released it as it was.
Yeah.
But because I think we had a lot more freedom this time around, and because we were, you know, going to release an album, like, it had to be the best thing that we all could have possibly have done. We just put so much time and effort and there was definitely periods of burnout where I just didn't know if it was any good. Because you listen to it so often and you play around with so many different ideas and you just think, what the fuck is going on, kind of thing.
At the beginning of Me Alive, it starts with a snare that goes chugga chugga. Originally, I say originally, like it was like kind of a low tom thing that we'd started on. And I was like, I was going to Noah, can we just keep on the dugga dugga really low thing? And Noah was like, no, not doing that. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted it. Thank God he didn't listen to me, because it would have sounded awful.
Would not have hit as
it
hard.
wouldn't have hit nearly as hard. But I remember with Me Alive, it originally had a rhythm that went jan ticka jan ticka jan ticka jan 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 ticka, something like that. Now it's more like dan ticka ticka dan ticka ticka dan. But it was slower, ploddier, like dan, and it was more on the low toms. But then Noah played a drum rhythm, which is very similar to the one that is now, which is like, and I heard it and I went, that's really cool. So cool. How can we make that work? And so it's way better than any rhythm I'd been doing. So I started trying to mold around just that rhythm. I thought everything sounded muddy. So I changed the key 3 or 4 steps above to essentially, and then tried to change my singing part just so then they sat, the drums could sit in their own area and then the singing in another. And just to riff off Lawrence, we could do that this time round. Yeah. We could go in and record it and listen and be more deliberate and careful. And once upon a time, I would have gone, no, the drums don't work. That's not correct for the vibe or the energy. This time round, I was far more committed to flowing with what people wanted to put in and make their mark, that it just worked so much better.
Well, I think we might have had this conversation, Noah and I, when we're at Cambridge. It's awful when you're a drummer and you're writing a song or you're recording and someone comes up to you who isn't a drummer and says, yeah, can you do it? And just thinking, what is that? That's just, because yes, you have that, you have your own vision, you have your own sort of, tightness of the group, with the recording, with the writing and everything. Was it difficult to get someone else in as a producer to help mold that sound for you? Was there a part of you that just really had to trust and to let go in the same way that you do with each other with the contributions you make?
I think, there's always going to be a certain sound when you go with any producer. And I think with Tom, I think you had shared like the stuff that you'd done beforehand.
I'd done a call with him beforehand.
Yeah. And
so you had that confidence.
Yeah. So like I'd listened to a lot of his work beforehand and I just thought, this sounds great. Like you can hear the drums crystal clear, you can hear everything crystal clear, and it all sounds just so polished, and yet everything kind of just punches and sounds raw, and it doesn't sound, like fake or anything. So yeah, I was really happy to get on board with Tom, and because I think, we have a lot of similar tastes in his band, Alpha Male Tea Party. They're quite guitar riffy as well, so I shared a lot of common ground with him, for me personally.
So good at it. He's very, very good. I mean, all of us, of course, had apprehensions about passing it off because we're all kind of like destiny-driven people. I don't know, so the lack of better words, like we're very, again, as I said beforehand, quite individualistic, or like we feel like we can do that. But Tom Peters has this magical ability to both be soft palm in his approach, yet not back down on something that he feels strongly about, unless you feel even stronger. And then at that point, he understands it's an important element. Yeah, yeah. So he can weed out weak ideas. He can be like, kind of...
I think one of the main reasons we went with Tom as well was for the drums.
Yeah.
Because we heard, we've been trying to perfect the drum sound.
We'd been burnt in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we knew from his previous work that, the drums were definitely in the same vein as what we wanted. I remember in the studio, he did want to change one part of the song of Noah's drums. And was it And the End?
Yeah. That was massively simplified, yeah.
And yeah, I think that was the only thing that was quite a difference that he asked for us to change. But Noah was like open to try it. He was happy to give it a go.
Hats off to Noah. He did a lot of on-the-fly changes because we started the album with recording the drums. We of course demoed and got it going, but the actual laying down the tracks started with the drums. And
I think it's a good job he did, because that really made the song a lot more fragile sounding by stripping the drums back a lot more.
Because the whole song is about questioning where you'll go on to. Like, do you stay in this horrible place, or do you reach for something greater? And both are technically valid. You know, so opening it up and making it feel a bit more sparse was definitely a good shout from Mr. Tom Peters.
Yeah, it was an absolute joy, like, recording with Tom.
He's lovely.
I think me, out of everyone, I get extremely anxious in the studio. Like, I hate being watched playing my instrument in such detail, because I probably just have some insecurities about that. But I did tell Tom, like, you know, I'm feeling pretty anxious doing this, and like, especially like traveling to Liverpool,
because we
staying somewhere you don't know, and then like going into a studio for very long days and like recording all the stuff. And it was a challenge, but it was really nice. Like, Tom is just a lovely person.
Where you were staying in Liverpool, wasn't there like some weird parties happening like below or above or something like that?
Yeah, it was pretty awful. We stayed in like a really cheap Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there was like an orgy going on downstairs.
Yeah, that's right, But Lawrence and I went over, we had like an experience where we'd hired this Airbnb place and they did a bait and switch last minute.
Oh, right.
So the first day where he was recording like guitars, I was on like Airbnb customer support getting us another place to stay, because they had taken us to a decent room, to this really tiny room that only had one bed and like a sofa bed thing, and it was just not on. So Lawrence was trying to really think inside himself, and I was like, how the hell am I gonna get them to reassess? So yeah, both of our experiences of staying in Liverpool.
You slept well. Thank you, Francis.
You're welcome.
We did have a nice Indian meal though. It was really nice. And I left my phone in the bathroom.
I guess that all tops it off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, that's sort of, maybe going across there, getting out of those familiar circumstances you're with here, that helps as well. Geographically, you're in a different place. You're working with someone else as well. Yeah. So the vibe is different. There is inherently, because it's you all together, that is going to stay the same, but there's also going to be a fresh element as well.
Yeah, I suppose like going somewhere that, like, I knew I was going to be anxious because I was going somewhere else and it was a city. I'm not a city person. Probably added to the blimmin' performance, because I would have been like super anxious. But if I had a preference, I would be like, oh, I'd like to go out in the countryside and record in this nice studio in the countryside or something. But maybe that wouldn't have been as nice of a performance.
Yeah.
You never know.
Maybe it would have been too peaceful.
Yeah.
So you were happy to hand over the creative side, and it's gone really well. Obviously, you all have your own different strengths. Obviously, you mentioned that Noah did all the artwork.
Yeah.
And it's a very striking album cover. Was that, again, were you sort of just handing that job over to him because you trusted him with it all?
I think that was pretty much all Noah for the most part. Yeah. Like, he gave us 3 artworks at the beginning of a particular direction we could go. We all saw that last one, went, that's really fucking cool. And then he just went with it. He asked for like tweaks and stuff like that. But if you're talking about actual content of what's going on, no, that's him. That's all him. Very damn impressive. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And even when I try, I might have comments, but all I could ever say was things that might have jumped out to me. I couldn't necessarily give solutions, and even if I could, I don't think they'd be helpful. Like, it would be.
Yeah, the amount of times I probably pissed Noah off by like going into his room, being like, "That doesn't look right."
Shit.
You just do something there. Well, like, yeah, but
fix it.
And I'm sure that was really frustrating. There's only ever like minor things, like that twig's too long, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's wrong with her mouth?
Yeah.
So it's just a long balancing thing.
Yeah. But you all have your own strengths, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is, again, you know, it's that whole thing, you know, with the family, you know, it's almost like you're a body as well, aren't you, of people, and you all have your own functions, you all have your own strengths, but it all works together for the whole.
I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of the time, how the songs start and the skeleton generally comes from myself. So I'll start at least traditionally, I'd start a lot of the songs and the messaging and direction. From there, though, it's handed over to different band members. And then that's where the soul kind of comes in. So I'm generally doing, you know, chord progression. Even then, though, like I'll have chord progressions, right? We'll use Me Alive again. That's actually a really good example. Me Alive, I did have a chord progression, but that kind of, you know, driven, anxious funk bit that's toward the end, that wasn't me. I said I knew that there needed to be something there, but I didn't know what. Like I was just like, let's find something here. I know that we need to do it. And Maddie came up with it. It sounded awesome. And that meant that the song could then complete. So I had an idea of where it needed to go. But, you know, I'm happiest when I can carve out a shape and start saying, well, you wanted this and you wanted this. Can we try that? But then let folks properly fill it in and go for it, because that's what then gives it its identity. So I get all of my joy from being able to come up with, you know, the lyrics and the messaging and the general flow and the ideas. Of course, this is a band, so it's not like the lyrics are done and then they can't be touched. Like lyrics are tweaked and changed and people suggested stuff and we swapped it over and we, you know. But that's kind of in the creative space of music, that's kind of where I situation myself and where I'm happiest. I like to work as glue. I like taking other people's ideas and seeing how I can put it in with just a bit of whatever twist I might have at the time.
Yeah. So album, finished recording, done and dusted, artwork done, production done, it's ready. The live show. So when you played Cambridge, there was, you know, the costumes and the makeup and everything. Just so, what was the thinking behind that? Where did that all come from? Well,
I think like we'd been wanting to have costumes and a cohesive look for a very long time. And the amount of times it would be like, I'd be doodling, be like, okay, this is what we want to do. And then like putting it into practice and then we're like, that's not right. Or like, because you used to wear like shorts a lot of the time and boots.
A throwback to a simpler time that I just didn't know how to move on from. It was tough.
But we knew like our sound is grand a lot of the time. So we had this idea of draping things. And Camille, France's lovely wife, very talented with making costumes. So she
made the kimonos for us. And she'll be the first one to say that she's not a seamstress, and yet she did it. Like she had made these wonderful things for us. The Camille is like one of my backbones for a lot of things, like the harmonies of the album. She really helped with that. You know, I had these ideas and then I'd be like, what do you think? And she'd be like, I think this might be getting in the way of this part, or I think you might, you know, this harmony is probably ruining, you know, Lawrence's thing or whatever. So anyway, but that's a tangent. Costuming, she had done that, but
and I think like the costumes, the lights, like we've built the team a bit more this time. Like we've now got lovely people on board that want to help us, and you know, we're very grateful for them, because I mean, it's hard to find, like, I mean, for one, like trying to pay lots of people to do like costumes, lighting and stuff is just not feasible at our size. But we're very fortunate to have Juliana, a lighting technician now, and I think that really enhanced the performance.
I mean, that dude used to run a venue, like he knows his stuff. We also have Tom, who's on our sound as well. Like having this team of very dedicated people around who are just as kind and loving about things really helps a lot. You know, and Sam, who's actually recording this interview as we speak. Hello there, Sam. Like, he does all the kind of videography and photography. So it's like, it's not just a sensation that it's bigger than yourself. It is bigger than yourself. Like, without the lighting and the sound and all the kind of things, you don't end up with that big sound and feel and all that. And we're very fortunate and lucky even to have the people in our lives that have allowed us to get to that kind of level and that kind of way.
Yeah, and support systems, like, is, you know, people around us as well that support in lots of different ways. That it has been a challenge. I think, like, the last few years has, I mean, for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but it has been a really difficult time. Like, I don't want to say the C word, but COVID, not cancer.
The big C.
Yeah.
that was difficult. It feels like a whole lifetime ago now, but like, and coming out of it, and
I mean, it's a faux pas, but it was a mass traumatic event. I think that's why a lot of people want to avoid talking about it altogether, because it was so awful in terms of as an experience. We'd far rather just be like, didn't happen. Don't speak about it. Don't speak about it. But it happened, man, and it's still with us even now. I can see it with people. So yeah, that was really tough, and it's not like I'm going to turn around and say we need to talk about it more. I'm sure people are done talking about it, but to pretend it didn't have an impact in the way that it did, like, it took me ages to regain my ability just to chat to people and feel those things. And that sensation of being an outsider grew for a long time. You're talking about it being tough and hard, and, you know, we were physically away from each other.
I remember, like, just at one point we hadn't practiced for, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks or something. It just felt weird turning up to your house. Yeah. And all I did, I think I just brought, like, you asked for, like, your microphone stand or something to be brought back, and that was, like, the only physical interaction we had. Yeah. And it was like that for about, you know, 3 or 4 months, where we'd just see each other once in a blue moon. And
because we have been a part of each other's lives now, like, intensely for 10 years. Yeah. And
it was hard. I mean, a lot of this album's energy came from that, right? Like, the album centers around a feeling like you've had a crisis of, you know, identity, or like existentialism, and you don't know how to come back out of it. Yeah. So that whole theming of, like, getting to that rock bottom, awful place and trying to climb back out of it. There was so much of that, like, over COVID. I don't know about you guys, but that was part. I'd lost a lot that I wanted to come back. Like, how can I find this joy and this love again when I can't even see it in myself? I want it. I technically, in my head, identify with it, but I don't feel it. It's gone. And boy, does no one ever really want to talk about how to recover joy and hope when you can't find it. You know, you just know you want it. So, album talks a lot about that too. I'll tell you that. So
it's one of those things, isn't it? You know, and I think we might have touched upon this again in one of the many discussions we had in Cambridge, in that out of these experiences, these bad experiences in life, as a musician, you can get material, you can get stuff that, you know, you want to say from it. And say with COVID, the reaction afterwards was generally fell into those two camps, and that people did stay very insular, or they really went over the top and really wanted to embrace everything and everyone that they could to try and catch up with that missed time.
I found a lot of those people in the second camp still had something, and they were really annoyed that they felt that a lot of the time. If you wanted to say, like, you know, if anyone was like, I'm still not quite sure, they would actually get really irritable sometimes. Like, no, come on, it's fine now, it's fine. It's fine, tell me it's fine. And you're like, okay, it's fine, man, it's fine. I didn't. Maybe you guys felt it. I straight after COVID and all that kind of stuff, I didn't feel any carefree partying at all. There didn't seem to be that energy. There was still always a level of apprehension.
It's almost like it could have just started again around the corner in another 3 or 6 months. Like it didn't feel like it just kind of felt like a very gradual. Oh, okay, things are kind of normal now. You don't need to do the normal regulations now. You need to, be at home or be distant from people. It just kind of felt like, okay, well, I guess it's fine now. It might stay normal, and luckily it has, more or less. So that's, I think, because we were pretty much, that was when we properly started writing for the album, when it
I guess so. Although only like beyond halfway. It wasn't.
I think only really that Aches was what came well before COVID.
Yeah, that's true. But it only started taking on its identity like after we started putting it together. It kind of it had like a whole different title. I think it was called Night Sky Thunder for a while and all that. Until it found its new identity in the album, and the lyrics changed up and the feel and everything. But yeah, like as you can see, I get very passionate about this kind of this space of nowhere where no one ever really wants to talk about it. And I'm not going to force them to talk about it necessarily, but that space, that feeling, that traversing and such it can be not unpleasant, but definitely disconcerting. And we kind of ran straight into that and made a whole thing about that.
But I think for me, hearing you speak, I think the album certainly, and Flint Moore, the band, would be different now if it hadn't been for that time of COVID. You have navigated your way to this point. Yeah, you've come through that, that time, those obstacles together, and you've come out stronger. Yeah, and you are where you are now because of that.
I think sorry.
There you go.
I was gonna say, I think we felt quite salty for a while because we had basically like lost a massive opportunity where we had to like stop gigging and stop continuing the path that we wanted to do. But I think in retrospect, probably the album or EP or whatever it was going to be probably just would have been maybe more of the same, because we hadn't learned anything from the situation of COVID. So
we hadn't considered.
It probably ended up in the long term probably a better thing overall anyway. So I don't regret it that much.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of bands who were on the up just before COVID hit, and they were really looking good, but then COVID hit and it just killed the momentum. And I think some of them have really, really struggled to get past that. And I think some have, just gone by the wayside. Yeah. But, others and yourselves, you've managed to push through.
I'd say that we've only just started surpassing what felt to be the momentum that we lost before COVID in terms of getting things moving and going and talking and stuff. And that's just how long it took to be able to refine footing.
Yeah, it's felt like we've been grinding for a long time. Like we've been creating, and we've been all the ugly things that people probably don't want to hear about, but like thinking about marketing and thinking about all the shit you have to do to make sure it's going to somewhat be a success. And it's not, for me, it has not been since the tour started, since I've like gone up on a high a bit. And it's like, because I'm a bit of a roller coaster person anyway, but I was kind of like this for a while, and then when tour hit, it was like, yes.
It's what we're for.
But I've regained that joy of that element of the band that was lost for a long time because of the lack of gigs, the lack of interacting with people. Like I want to be connecting with the people that like music, and we've been doing that on tour, which has felt so good.
I was going to say, it must be a real relief to get out there, play the songs from the album, connect with people, because you did a proper UK tour, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which was
still got Reading to come, just the little last one. But you spoke of connection. Yeah, that bit, that's for me a huge aspect of why I got into the whole thing in the first place. Like the cycle completes when I finish writing and essentially give it to people. For me, that closes the loop. So for a while, it just felt like an open loop. I hadn't made it to that point. To echo Maddie, touring made sense for me. And it's just so much fun being able to see the people who get it, our kind of people, the people that understand where that's at, and the sensation that you're kind of sharing something. Saying that you're giving it feels incorrect, because then they give it back. It's you're able to kind of have that kind of environment.
It's a sort of, a symbiotic relationship, really, isn't
absolutely.
And we met you, which is good.
Absolutely.
I've been. It's just been such a thrill for me, sort of seeing you play live, getting to know you initially. Obviously we're on our first steps of a friendship, which is really lovely, and just because the music was so striking. But I think it's the whole package, and literally it's the whole package, from the artwork, the music, the personalities, and it all works. And I think that's really come across for people who've come to see you live.
We haven't even spoken about the music videos, the music videos are all directed, all those things with Sam, right? We've worked with him since right from the beginning. Sam J. Lance, shout out, who's again behind the cameras as we speak. He's involved in all that we do, and it's.
I love you, Sam.
Is a cat making its way in right now?
Bad kitty.
Okay. But Sam has been involved from the get-go, which means that his influence and his way of seeing things and stuff also echo all the way through what we do. And that's really cool too. It's just like this big cohesive thing where people's messagings and ideas come through,
A guy told me once a few years ago, and I think it's, true with you as musicians and you as the people who come round you, who've joined you in this extended Flint Moore family. I always said, deep calls to deep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's it feels really good to just be
deep calls to deep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Whisper to yourself. Yeah, absolutely. But it would, that, for me, it's the thrill of being part of something bigger than just myself.
Yeah.
Working with people, doing things I could never do.
Yeah.
And being able to feel that level of love and admiration and respect, knowing that I bring something to the pile too. It's not like some unfair weird thing where you're just
leeching onto their talent.
Yeah, it's pure. It's like it's like just like Maddie spoke about just talking about marketing and stuff like that, but. With Flint Moore, the kind of point that we're at, we do all sorts of roles. So for this tour, Maddie had been the tour manager and been speaking with all of the different venues and stuff like that beforehand. And she's really, really good at it. And then it means I get to have this kind of level of admiration and stuff like that. It sounds like I'm just blowing smoke, but it's not. And that's really satisfying to be able to truthfully say, hey, nice one, great job. Yeah. It's not like some weird flattery. It's like, okay, cool. I'm part of that, right? Yeah. And I don't think I could ever find that kind of level of satisfaction working solo or by myself or anything like that.
You'd be back in corridors singing sea shanties.
Yeah, exactly like that. But even
Still
that,
does.
I consider that a cry for help, Paul.
Yeah.
Who sings sea shanties alone, Paul?
Sailors lost at sea.
That literally defeats the point of a sea shanty.
Yeah. So you see, you've reached a point, and I genuinely feel this, that there is that potential for you to be a Glastonbury headliner. I honestly, genuinely think that. And I was driving over here today and just thinking, because of the tight unit you are at the moment, and it's so lovely and wonderful. how difficult that's going to be to retain that when you are the size of Coldplay or someone like that.
If anything,
It's going to be interesting because there'll be stuff that goes around your orbit where you'll be moved along from place to place, and it will take a lot of pressure off of you. But I think there's always got to be that connection.
Be more isolated,
hasn't there?
Yeah.
I assume, really.
I mean, from what I understand of other artists that have got larger, it never gets easier. It just changes. That's it. So if you think that by palming off different duties to people, it suddenly the load is lifted, think again. You're now filling your time with interviews, and now you're filling your time with writing those things, and now your writing is being critiqued by someone who says they won't finance your stuff unless you're hitting these criteria.
Yeah.
And some artists buckle and say, I can't do that, man. I can't do that. And they're like, well, fine, you're dropped. You don't have that 80K that you can work with anymore. And now you're into a whole different world of complications. So it's never going to change up. The main thing is that we got to make sure that we, as we're saying this just casually the other day, so long as we focus on being loving and kind to each other and holding each other up and complimenting and stuff like that, we can wade through how toxic the music industry can be.
Yeah.
It can be very, very toxic.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not easy.
No.
Like, I never want to say that it's really hard, because I don't want to ever come across as ungrateful, because we get to do something that we love. But it is also, there's been points where it's been like, I've been crying because it's just like, you feel like you're working so hard and maybe not feeling as like you're getting the not attention, but like it's like we want to show people and share with people, and it's like I don't know, it's a constant uphill thing, but I think we've got it. We're a strong team. We love each other very much.
Yeah, we do.
And
and I have nothing but love and respect for them, even when things are tough or I disagree or I think something's like that now feels surface, right? It's not the fundamentals feel good. So it's but it's same with the team, and we're trying to be as careful as we can as we add folks to our team, because if you have someone who's just unkind or difficult, you can't avoid them sometimes.
Or doing it for the wrong motives.
Yeah, or like exactly that, none, as far, like a lot of artists, we're artists. We didn't really get in the music industry to be entrepreneurs. So that kind of mentality doesn't really work with us that great. Even if sometimes our aim is to make money, the deeper, more fundamental reason isn't still the love of money. It's just we want to do more cool shit. Like sometimes, sometimes it can be fun stacking stuff and be like, oh yeah, look how much we're earning, whatever. But ultimately, it's not when you come back to it. It's not. Or else I wouldn't be in the music industry.
Yeah, I was going to say. We'll never see a penny in our day.
Yeah.
We just go straight back into the next
exactly that. So, hell no. But we can I totally see us being like, I wouldn't be doing all of this if I didn't see us, as capable as getting to the top and doing all of that. Everything now, especially, my whole focus is just like I love being a professional. I love doing things professionally. And if my own ego or my own mechanics are getting in the way of that goal, I try and slice them in half as fast as possible. And my main thing is that I love writing and I love performing to connect to people. Everything else, like someone else can do it or I can do it, I don't mind, so long as it's done and it's done well and when it's moving. And it just means
I think just having a lifestyle that is creative and pushing yourself in a certain way, and like pushing yourself while also compromising with everyone else, like to be able to do that for a living is really rare, but would be such a fortunate thing to have. And I think that's kind of what I mostly care about, is just using my brain in the way that I want to use it and just be creative and write the best songs that I can. Like, I can play an instrument, like I want to, push myself, and then obviously like being on tour, playing shows and seeing new people all the time is always thrilling. But if I didn't enjoy the songs, then just be like,
Yeah, or else we'd be a cover band.
I'd get burnt out so quickly.
Yeah,
like I'd quit it. So that's the most fortunate thing, that I feel that I have other people that can push me in different ways. I wouldn't even think. I would just be writing drony crap. I would think would be good.
This is perfect.
Yeah, basically.
Nothing needs to change.
So, album out, tour is done, with the final date of the tour coming up very shortly. What is next for Flint Moore?
We're going to continue to write and release music, hoping to get out to Europe soon. Like, we want to go to Germany, maybe Amsterdam, maybe Ireland. That's the dream. We're working towards that.
We've got a lot of German fans.
Mm.
We had some fly out to our London show recently as well.
Oh.
Yeah, that was mad.
That was mad.
Germany's a great place.
Germany just seems to
really
be the
good.
kind of place where we should be. It feels that, at least from every indicator.
Yeah.
It's just, of course, we don't live in Germany. So logistically, a little bit more complicated.
Mm.
And I think as well, like, this tour has shown as well the joy you can get with playing with bands that you like to play with.
Yeah.
So I think, like, next tour, which we're hoping to do a tour around March, April time, like, my goal is to get to play with bands that we really love.
Yeah, man.
And make friends. Because that would be nice.
Yeah, you're very complimentary about the bands on your little video.
Yeah.
On
They're
Insta.
always great. I mean, for instance, with Birmingham, it was a dream come true for me to actually see You Dirty Blue, because I wanted to perform with them right back in 2018. We were meant to do a show together when I put together this tour that was not well put together, but it happened. And they pulled out, they couldn't do it. But I stayed listening to their music and enjoying it. And actually, it was one of some of their songs I put on repeat for many years, even though, like, yeah, their particular sound. So when I saw them live, it was just a little surreal. It was just, they weren't on some kind of big crazy stage or anything, but I knew all of their songs, or at least, the main ones, and I just really liked it. I told them afterwards as well. I don't think they really knew how to take the news. It was just like
they found compliments difficult. I think.
Yeah, they did.
They were so lovely.
They were. Yeah,
They were great.
The guy just has such a unique singing voice that I hear nowhere else. The way he speaks is how he sings too. So that was even weirder to hear him talk to me, because I was like, "That's your singing accent," which is not always prompts,
Yeah.
Like, God knows that I curated my singing accent to be different from my talking one. But he just went, "Nope, mine's fine." And went right into it, and it works great. I love it.
Always used to make me laugh with country and western artists around East Anglia, because for some reason, East Anglia, country and western is really big, particularly in the Fenland areas, sort of. And it's just odd, sort of seeing some guy saying, "Yeah, this next song's about my my wife going off with someone and down the railroad track and everything," and then they're burning a wheel.
That's a cracking
My
accent.
wife left me.
And it's just that switch. And I know some people, sort of generally sort of tend to fall into that thing, and that,
Completely.
they are used to hearing a certain genre sung in a certain way, a certain accent or whatever, and they adopt that, and it's not their own thing.
Yeah.
But
I started off with a singing accent that sounded kind of American. Then I wanted to move it into English, but some American noises sound pretty all right, but it still didn't feel like me. So I swapped them out for Irish sounding things, because part of my blood is Irish, and it influenced my family quite a lot, and that felt more correct. So now my singing accent is somewhere between English and Irish.
It's unique.
Yeah.
All these disparate elements coming together in your singing voice, in the band, and it just all works. So lots more to come from you, and the journey, which has been going for a little while, but I think it's only just really
begun
starting, isn't it? Which is an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Paul.
It's been lovely talking to you.
Lovely talking
And
to you.
here's to the future.
Here's the future.
Cheers. Okay.
I'm thirsty now.
Lovely.
Did you still want to redo the intro? Do you think that'll look a bit weird now or something?
Put my hair
'Cause
up and stuff.
Are you doing a one shot with us all in?
As a wide shot.
Wide shot, yeah. Okay, yeah, one
Might be
shot.
tricky. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Might be too
We'll
easy.
just,
I imagine this will be cut to hell.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be steering
can
that.
always
particular one.
Having never edited
Yeah,
the video
yeah,
before.
yeah.
I'll talk about the audio, you know what will happen.
But thank you, that was lovely. And I really
That's
appreciate
right.
it.
No, so we could have,
I mean, I can keep
there was a whole bunch of things, but as we said, we're at the start of our, I just feel incredibly blessed to be with you guys, really
Yeah.
do, because it's lovely. Just thinking, sort of first saw you at Cambridge Rock Festival, and then heard the album. Obviously got chatting to you briefly at Cambridge, and then heard the album. I was absolutely blown away. Did the review, and then saw you a day or so after the review came out, and it's been really, really. It's been one of those wonderful sort of things in life that people cross your path at the right time, and take you on this wonderful new adventure, which is what has been happening with you guys.
Doing, man.
So
We're doing it.
And thank you for your review, because it did feel lovely to have that feedback, I think.
Yeah, you got it. That was the thing. We spoke about this at the Cambridge thing. It just felt you understood it, and that was really nice.
I think sometimes you do connect with things,
Yeah.
don't you? And I think not just musically, but emotionally, and all these various levels. And it just really worked. And I was able to put those. One of the things I am good at is I put those feelings into words.
Really well. You picked and your words didn't float away either. So it was like you picked the right ones to stay grounded in the thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like you picked out a thesaurus and just started going to town. Like they actually made sense. All right, should we get up and move around a little bit and all that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Paul.
Pleasure.
I'm sorry if we kept you longer than you expected.
No. I was, the evening, I was worried about you guys because obviously
I'm chill.
you all got your own lives to get on with, and
I've got a sandwich in the fridge, I'm all happy.